work a lot easier without as many hoops to jump through.
But you think folks put it on Twitter, don't
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I don't even use that.
Me neither. Either, but.
I have it, but I don't use that. I turned off my notifications for like spam stuff. I should just lose that.
I got it. The only reason why I got it the first time was I think I had we had a vacation in Denver or in Colorado and flew up to Nebraska, and the rental car they gave me was they must have been having problems, and it was so beat up and it was an accident. The front bumper was expensive. I was trying to get a hold of customer service because the counter people weren't helping me. And the only way I got their attention was on Twitter.
Really?
Nothing's changed here. I still just fix system 49.
I hope so.
Okay.
Nothing is.
That's online. Here we do it. Matt, if you can hear us, can we do a sound check?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Turn the system on. Try that again.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. I'll call the November 7th City Council meeting to order. Call of the roll.
Abby Hansen,
Here.
John Hawkins,
Here.
Megan McFarland. Here. Matt McKinney,
Here.
Logan Welch.
Here,
Call for a motion to approve the agenda.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. To the republic for which it stands. Item 1, petitions, communications and requests. This is the time of the meeting that a citizen may address the council on a matter not on the agenda. Except in cases of emergency, the city council will not take any action at this meeting, but may ask city staff to research the matter. I have the matter placed on a future meeting. Anyone have anything for us tonight? Well, we've got the Doodlebug Club of America here. You guys want to do your presentation?
As I'm assuming you're aware of, we came tonight to present the city with a couple of checks. One for the Park and Recreation and one for the Police Department. As a club who needs the city's help in keeping our reunion alive, the city's been good to us for allowing us to ride our doodlebugs on the streets during that week. And Park and Recreation has been super for allowing us to use the trail and keeping it clean when we're on it. So we wanted to return a little appreciation back to the city.
Okay.
So
Did you want
is there a representative here from the police department or the
to?
Park and Recreation?
We have that. Bring it to the hair special.
Wonder if I could get this. What do you guys want to take a picture? I know what mic on. Okay, well, we got a photographer right here.
No, you don't.
Can you use mine?
Yeah,
Okay.
his iPhone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
To the Park and Recreation, we have $500 we'd like to give you in appreciation for all they do for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Got it?
Did I move? Okay.
And for the police department, a check for $500 for appreciation for putting up with us for that week.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And being city council, we also want to say thank you because I know you guys have to go through some red tape to make it happen for that week too. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate what you do for us. It's a great. Yep, thank you. Okay. Item 2 is the following items have been deemed non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council on a single motion. If a council member or a member of the audience wishes to have an item removed from this list, it will be considered on its normal sequence on the agenda. Item A is minutes of October 17. B is a resolution on payroll for period ending October 22nd and paid on October 28th. C is a resolution on bills, approve the fund list. D is inspection department report for September. So A through D collectively.
Move to approve collectively.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Same sign. Yeah. Item 3, general agenda. We haven't got 6 up. Okay.
We'll skip down to number B.
B, the resolution to pursue state revolving loan fund loan to pay for the construction of a new wastewater treatment plant project.
Good evening, Mayor and council council members. I'm up here again talking about wastewater. Just wanting to formalize the decision on whether we're going to be going USDA or state revolving loan fund. At the previous work session on August 15th, I think the council was leaning towards the state revolving loan fund. With the caveat that staff would follow up with USDA and find out if we did qualify for grants. They did identify that we would qualify potentially for 2 to 3 million. That's not a guarantee. They did make some comments that they've never funded a loan of this magnitude, so it'd have to go to the federal level. There's no guarantee that they would even be able to fund it or be comfortable funding something of this magnitude for a community of our size. Considering the environmental regulations, the lack of flexibility to modify some of our payments, and the long-term commitment to USDA, as well as their lack of flexibility during the construction period. PFM, Bolton and Mink, and staff is recommending that we proceed with the state revolving loan fund. So right now I'm just asking council to adopt a resolution authorizing and approving to proceed with the state revolving loan fund to finance the construction.
Any other question? Okay. Full promotion. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Now I can go back.
We'll go back to item A. It's a public hearing on proposed plan specifications, proposed form of contract, and estimate of costs for furnishing materials for furnishing an electric power transformer for the Risner substation. I'll open the hearing. Are there any written objections?
Receive no written objections.
Are there any oral objections?
No oral objections.
I'll close the hearing. Yeah, so we need a resolution approving and confirming plan specifications in form of contract and estimate costs for an electric power transformer for the Risner substation, and authorizing the city manager to execute the purchase of such electric power transformer for the Risner substation from Niagara Power Transformer Corporation. You going for it?
Yeah, this is a request for approving the purchase of the transformer, the substation transformer. This is very different from our distribution transformers. It's definitely a lot bigger. It serves the substation as a whole, and the different communities that are connected to that. One of the reasons why we went out for bid and the same time we're going out for working on the design aspect of the substation is because of the lead times associated with acquiring such electrical components. In this case, you're looking at about a 2-year lead time from if we place the order now to when it comes in. One of the couple of different driving forces behind the development of the Risner substation is one is that the past water substation, which this is replacing, some of its components are reaching their useful life, and part of the preliminary study or assessment of the electric system study recommended that retiring the past water sub and constructing the riser substation. At that same time, staff was having discussions with Bolton and Mink for the construction and development of the new wastewater treatment plant, which would be tied into one or the other. And it just coincided that to facilitate the retirement of the past water sub, we needed to move forward with plans to construct the riser substation. So the combination of the cost between the transformer from Niagara Power Transformer Corporation and the lead time is a driving force as to why we're recommending purchasing that.
You think you're 2 years out?
They think they're 2 years out, and that's a question mark.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah, that's the times we live in. Yeah. Call for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, item C is the first reading of an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, the City of Webster City, Iowa, 2019 by amending Chapter 48 pertaining to sewer rental rates.
So this is another item that we've been discussing for the better part of many years now, but getting to the point where we're starting to look at financing for the construction of a new wastewater plant. The council met in a study session back in August, and that's where, as we discussed earlier, the differences between the SRF and the USDA financing. We're establishing the rates with the goal of being able to finance the cost of the construction of the wastewater plant, an estimated engineer's estimate of $78 million. And so the rates have been set up in a way that we reach that. Not all of that is going, the increases are not going to go into it to right away. It's going to be staggered over the next several years to phase it in, to reduce the impact, as well as to get information out as construction moves forward. You had a copy in your packet, both some calculations of what the average cost would be to customers, as well as the ordinance itself and the changes that were being proposed from the current ordinance and the new rates as they're established. We have Suzanne from PFM, as well as staff available to answer any specific questions you may have on the ordinance.
Just for awareness, this is a 30-year SRF loan at a 2.75% APR.
Say 2.7.
2.75.
Good. Better than 3, isn't it? That's a good sign. Things I got from my bank today, I went 7.5.
I would add that we've reached out to both Senator Ernst's office and Senator Grassley's office earlier in the fall and summer months to make them aware and see and pursue other financial resources at the federal level. There weren't very many other than the USDA programs that BD mentioned earlier. And so SRF was really the main financing of tool available for us to pursue, and the rates were reflective of pursuing SRF.
I have no questions on the rate structure or, the direction to proceed with the loan, of course. I just, I definitely want to make sure we are proactive with the education of the community on their rates, how they're going to be affected. I mean, essentially, these rates are going to double in 4 years, or excuse me, 5 to 6 years. They'll essentially double for the community members or the customers of our utility service. Again, we kind of have this project moving forward that we all agree it needs to happen. But sometimes I hear in the community, there's some pushback of why. So I know we've done a lot of things. There's been articles written. But if there's any way we can be more proactive of educating people on the life of our wastewater treatment system, the way it's going to be financed, or really has to be financed through the ratepayer, I think that's gonna go a long way when these start hitting come January 2023. Unfortunately, we are in a position, we are gonna need to move forward with this, and really the only feasible way to pay for it is through the rate structure. I do like the fact that it doesn't affect small businesses that bad. The way our rate system's set up, it's by usage, right? Like, so many gallons per minute, and then do you jump up, or gallons or whatever, do you jump up to the next level? But unfortunately, just for the public's sake, it is a 25% increase happening January 1st, 2023, a 25% increase happening 2024, a 25% increase happening 2025, and it goes to 15, then 10, then 10. And I'm sure after the year 2028, there'll be kind of an automatic increase negotiated or decided amongst the council to take effect to get us out of a position like this in the future. So again, just for those who are listening online, that's the structure.
Yeah, I would agree with what Logan said. I think we need to do a good job of communicating out to the public through multiple means on, I don't think any of us likes it. I mean, we see it in front of us and we know we don't have a choice moving forward with the new wastewater plant, but I think we definitely need to communicate that. And then second part, Daniel, can you explain that? I guess it's page 64 of the packet. Does the usage rates there estimates include the base fee, or is the base fee separate from that?
The rates at the bottom are an estimate of the total. Thanks. The table at the bottom includes the base fee plus any usage charges. So that's my attempt to estimate the total bill by usage class. So if they use less than 1,000 gallons, it's just the base fee, because you charge in unit and was it cubic 100 cubic feet units. So I'm converting from cubic feet to gallons here because most people think in terms of gallons in their homes. But yeah, it includes the base fee and the usage fees in the usage chart. So someone can hopefully look up where their average usage is in their household and look at what their monthly fee will be in January 23, January 24, et cetera. And then there's different base fees by each usage class, right? So that's why there's different tabs and different tables for each customer class.
What's a unit equate to again? 750 gallons. Just because when they get their bill, they'll see the units on it.
And we may have to revisit the terms and the sewer ordinance when we adopt AMI metering for the water. At least the intent is to switch to gallons for metering as opposed to units. So in the future, when that occurs, we'll have to make that clear distinction and clarify that and update the ordinances accordingly.
Yeah, I guess we knew what was coming, I guess, just nothing, the way everything went in the world, it hasn't helped our situation. It's what it is.
I will add, we're working right now and we'll add a web page to our website with more detail and explanation on the wastewater project as well. And we'll include some of the financial information. Any other questions or feedback you feel helpful, please let us know. We share the information with staff at the wastewater plant to see what other relevant information would be helpful to include, as well as the staff at the utility office as they encounter, and unfortunately they're going to encounter the bulk of probably people's frustrations. So to make sure we can provide as much information out there to deflect some of the frustration, as well as to provide them the information and knowledge so that they can navigate those situations and provide the facts.
No, I appreciate that. That'd be awesome.
Daniel, when you talk to those at the state level, kind of looking at alternatives for additional funding, and I know we've talked in the past related to there's going to be a lot of communities that already have gone through this and are going through this in the next 5 years. Is there any sense on whether the federal government will begin to step in and help communities, just seeing the huge effect it's gonna have on everyone. I mean, isn't that similar to what happened 50 years ago? There was a lot of assistance when people started putting these systems in.
Yeah, and our outreach and trying to communicate with different folks. And oftentimes we deal with either the staff at the local field office or sometimes the staff at some of the state or federal offices in DC, and they all recognize the struggle, but they're all just pointing to the broad federal or state department for funding, which all revolves around a loan financing mechanism of some sort. Aside from, unfortunately, as one put it, letter of support and other efforts in that manner, there isn't, unfortunately, direct financial support related to that.
Okay, thank you.
And I would also add, like on the point that BD made on the USDA program with their revolving loan fund, and both SRF and USDA have, I believe, built in place mechanisms to provide some sort of financial assistance in the form of forgivable loan, portion thereof, or grants. In the case of the federal with USDA, that one was very specific and required several much more detailed engineering assessments and archaeological assessments tied to the project, and not just the wastewater plant site itself, but the entire, I would say, corridor that encompasses the wastewater plant, the lift stations and the force mains and everything in general, as well as specific construction parameters that would have to be reviewed by USDA's appointed engineers. And the combination of adding those components, the cost associated with that, the time it would take to get that approved to be able to complete construction at the plant before by the DNR's mandated deadline, and the rising interest cost, whatever grants we possibly would receive from the federal government would be offset by the rising costs associated to meet all those other requirements and the rising interest rates.
Guess if interest rates went down in another 10 years, we might be able to renegotiate anyway, wouldn't we? We wouldn't be.
So,
So the SRF loan has historically lowered their interest rate or done a reset and lowered interest rates should the interest rate environment change. They have done that historically. So yes, it's a possibility for even the state revolving fund loan that is a locked set fee. Yeah.
Okay, that's happening. It's something that could happen. It's, yeah. I mean, let's face it, 2.75 is still fairly low, so it's. All right. Well, guess ask for a motion.
don't move.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item D is a resolution accepting and approving acquisition of property generally located at 403 Broadway Street in City of Webster City, Hamilton County. Zach.
So this one and the next one that you guys will be approving is just a formality. Both of these properties have been acquired by the city through the state's code section that allows us to take abandoned properties in the community where the property owners have abandoned them for a minimum of 6 months. So 403 Broadway is one, and then the next one you'll approve is 1033 3rd Street.
I see they cleaned it up good today, so it's place looks a lot better already. 403 does. The other one we've got to wait a little bit, haven't we? But
Well, that one we're going to keep moving ahead because until somebody tells us to stop. So
yeah, okay. So call for motion on the 403.
So moved.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item E is a resolution accepting and approving acquisition of property generally located at 1033 3rd Street in the City of Webster City, Hamilton County, Iowa.
So moved. Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item F is a resolution authorising the city manager to execute a purchase order to Hubble Power Systems for a replacement battery bank for the Bowman substation.
This is a request from the electric line department to purchase a battery bank for the Bowman substation. The battery banks are used in the event of a power outage They essentially serve to continue to power the systems and components at the substation to be able to bring it back online. So it's a crucial piece of equipment. And we're not talking about your standard, size D batteries. These are large batteries that are installed. Fortunate to have the staff available within the line department that can install them themselves. So we save on the labor and just requires the purchase of the equipment, so the batteries themselves.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Okay, item G, resolution approving use of remaining budgeted funds needed to complete the water fill station and authorising the mayor to sign and execute a 3-year agreement with cloud-based software with Flowpoint Environmental Systems Incorporated. Brandon, we're gonna get ready for our water.
Yeah, so in January 2017, we approached council to seek bids and purchase a bulk water fill station. If bids came back under the 60,000 that we had in our CIP. We ended up awarding the bid to Flowpoint Environmental Systems for the $49,933. But we need to understand that that is strictly for the water fill station itself. That wasn't for the software or for the materials to get the water to where it will permanently sit. So once we received the bulk water fill station in late July, staff started making improvements to get the water and electric to where it will permanently sit. Some of the materials that we had to purchase, which was in the memo, a water main, parts, tees, valves. I know the line department had to purchase a few items, some conduit, and I believe a meter or something like that. So that accumulated to $5,391. It's still shy. We still have $4,675 left short of the 60,000. So that will complete to get the water fill station up and running. Also, we are proposing a 3-year cloud-based software agreement through Flowpoint. This agreement will allow residents and contractors to get water at any time without the assistance of city staff. This software system, I've had a lot of help with this. You'll be able to go online, set up an account and transfer money onto the Flowpoint program. I actually did a test trial of this, pretty easy. With that being said, we'll be able to pull reports on how much water is being used, how often, by who. We'll be able to use this important information, for budget purposes, lost water, which is stuff we're always kind of looking to improve on. The first 2 years are taken care of, and then the third year of the contract is $300 a month or $3,600 annually. With that being said, I know one of the things that was talked about in the beginning was the credit card reader. If you just go with the credit card reader itself and without the other one we're proposing now, you wouldn't get the documentation and the reports back. I talked with Jay with Flowpoint, did mention if this is something we want to pursue down the road, we don't have to wait for the 3-year contract to be over. We can implement that at any time. If you want to use the credit card system, the reason for that is it will be a $400 a year to get the system. But with that, there'll be per transaction fees. So every time the credit card is used, there'd be a charge for that. However, we'd have to get with staff, Dodie and Carol, everything to find out how much we want to increase the get per gallon to offset that charge. So right now we're proposing to go without that and see how it goes, get some feedback from some contractors, some people out in the public, see what they think, and then we'll see if we need to adjust and go from there. So
you're saying that there would not be a credit card system in place currently?
No.
So it'd be similar to what they do now? Because again, I'm a contractor. that
Yep.
uses it.
Yep.
So that's kind of the honor system. You write it down, you send it in. and
Nope.
send it.
So you'll go to the water fill station will be set where it's going to be. You'll be able to go on the website. So if you go onto the city's website or on the water fill station itself, it'll tell you to go to this website, the Flowpoint. It'll walk you step by step on getting transferring your money to an account to Flowpoint, which will then go to the city. You'll have an account set up with money. So then pretty much you'll have that to use whenever.
So you'd go to the fill station, because the whole beauty of this is logging, tracking, and maintaining it's being used and being billed.
Correct.
So it wouldn't kick on the valve unless you have an active account.
Correct. Yeah. So at that point, when you put the money in, you would get a username and log in and a password. So not everybody can just go in and push I want water. So that will prevent anybody. And I've been thinking about you kind of in this too, because I think it would benefit you this way, but also I can see people as like, well, I just want to go get just a little bit of water. And Carol and I and Dodie have talked about this and kind of pros and cons. But I think let's just start out this way, see how it goes. And then if this is something we really want to pursue, let's come back to it and let's try it. Yeah. So.
No, one of the things we were looking for is lots of times the old way we would bill somebody for water and never get paid. So at least this way you're getting your money up front this way, or if you do add the card reader at some point. And it takes out that invoicing and collection part of it.
No, I mean, again, if there's some type of account set up and it can kick on, because again, my company comes and goes at odd hours.
Sure.
If
Yep.
someone's not out there, we're out of luck if we can't get water.
Yep. And you'll have, like I said, you put
Yeah.
money in there, use your pet, you do a weekend, nights, days.
Is it right away too, as soon as you put the money, like,
Yes.
get on the website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
No, I think it brings us to the 21st century with that type of, service we provide. Because it is a very valuable service to be able to go quickly fill tanker trucks with water is, and be able to have a transaction with the city is a great thing to have. And the easier you make it, the better. And I'm sure it's gonna be a little bit more user friendly, clean.
I think everybody knows more data is what we need and that's going to provide it. So.
Yeah. Call for motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks, Brandon.
Yep.
You got another one yet?
I think so.
Okay. Got H, resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement between Gary Meyer and the city for payment of $1,000 for the concrete replacement in lieu of city crews repairing impacts to the drive approach tied to a water main break repair.
Yeah, so on November 22nd, 2021, we received a call out for a possible water main break at the 2108 Robin Road. Upon arriving there, we did notice that there was water boiling just on the north side of Gary's driveway in the right of way. Typical protocol, calling locates, bring staff in and start excavating. Once we start doing that, obviously, one of the things you need to take into consideration is when you excavate, we try to dig on both sides of the water main to make it more efficient, get in there quicker. But also OSHA requires us anything 5 foot or deeper, we have to have shoring. So typically our shoring box at its smallest, I think is 6 foot by 8 foot. So even if you almost got to over dig the excavation site. And so I guess to sum it up, after we got the water main fixed and removing the concrete from Gary's driveway and digging down underneath his driveway to repair the water main, typical protocol, backfilled, come back in the spring and pour the concrete. At that time, I think when we put in the locate, Gary met us out there and he kind of implied that he was wanting to redo his whole driveway. And I think at that time, staff came back and talked to me about it. And we kind of like, okay, what can we do here? This doesn't really make sense for us to pour it back to you. Just have a contractor come and tear it right back out. So we kind of put some pencil to it and kind of tried figuring out, what's fair to both of us. At that time, also in here, did a kind of comparison from, I think it was 819 Fairmeadow Drive. We did something similar a year or two ago. And it only made sense to come with an agreement. And we came up with $1,000 that Gary was happy with. You can obviously the concrete with time and labor is well worth it on our end. Gary was very great to work with. And I think it just shows also working with public, great relationship there moving forward. Maybe something we can do in the future. So.
Call for motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Thanks, Brandon.
Yep.
Okay, I is a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase a ride-on spreader sprayer. Little like a little machine.
Yeah.
So what we are requesting to purchase is a ride-on spreader sprayer. This machine will hopefully increase our efficiency and productivity, especially in the cemetery. It's a zero turn, so we can just zip right through things. We will still continue to use our 1920 tractor with the large attachment sprayer on the back for large areas because that is more efficient for that. So what we are requesting is to be able to purchase, to seek bids and purchase for a ride-on spreader sprayer.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Item J is a resolution authorising the city manager to purchase a 72-inch commercial mower,
Yep.
snow blower.
So currently we have 4 commercial mowers in our fleet for the parks and public grounds. We have reassessed this and we have come to the conclusion that we only need 3 commercial mowers. So we would like to trade in 2 of our older commercial mowers that have high hours and they're up there in age. We've had a lot of issues with leaks, things like that with those 2. And we would like to purchase a new one with a mower attachment and a snow blade.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
say no.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Item J, item K is a resolution authorising the city manager to execute and sign a contract from Brightly for asset management software. The software will be purchased through Sourcewell.
Yeah, so Cole, our mechanic, has been kind of the lead on this. He wasn't able to make it tonight, so I'll try to get through this. But so it's an asset software, but for us, fleet is going to be where we're going to use it the most. So a couple of years ago, Tim Zingenbeim is our former mechanic, and he's been with us for over 15 years. So a lot of knowledge, information with history and repairs on all this equipment kind of left when he did. At that time, he was using just an Excel spreadsheet on his computer to track all the maintenance of equipment that he had did in the past. And so with all the software coming into play nowadays, Cole brought to the table some of the stuff he had been using with the DOT, and we thought it was a great thing to implement. Some of the things Cole had been seeing with some of the equipment was maybe a little bit reactive instead of proactive. Some of the data being kept, he was trying to find some history on some equipment and he wasn't quite finding it. So you're trying to just guess what was going on, when it was changed, when it wasn't. And so moving forward with this software, it would create real-time budgeting, working with everybody here at City Hall with accounting and billing. Real time, every time something was bought, it gets put right into the budget. How much money is it costing to get rid of, or when we have equipment that's starting to fail? So you go to the budget time and you want to see like our loader. All right, how much money have we spent on it in the last 5 years? How much has it cost us in the last year? All right, and then it will start to tell you, all right, you need to be getting rid of this piece of equipment. And also another cool thing with this is with like your cell phone or an iPad, it comes with an app. So we do pre-trip inspections every Monday morning. And at that point, you can flag something. So your pre-trip will be right on your iPad. And so you go through it and you hit done and you sign it and it gets sent right to Cole, it goes right to him. If anything is red flagged, it gets sent to his email and it says you have an issue, you need to address it on this piece of equipment. And then also with miles and hours. So if it gets close to miles and hours on like a service, it will notify him too. So there's not equipment that's coming in being like, oh, we kind of forgot we're 500 miles on our service. So a lot of this stuff helps with communication. Cole's done a really great job with us here in the short amount of time he's been here. Like he said, he's just wanting, his goal is to keep the equipment running safely and efficiently for all employees and just prevent less breakdowns, be more proactive.
Definitely needed and definitely helping.
Move to approve.
All those in favour say aye. Aye. Okay. Item L is a resolution authorizing the city manager to make necessary budget amendments, accept and sign the agreement from Brightly Software to implementing permitting codes enforcement and financial connector software.
Good evening. Before you is a request to authorize the city manager to make necessary budget amendment in an amount not to exceed $22,625.49 to cover costs associated with permitting software and adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept and sign an agreement with Brightly Software Incorporation for permitting, code enforcement, and financial connector software in the amount of $22,625.49. Currently, our permitting and code enforcement processes are all long form handwritten processes. We do have a fillable application online, but that is then transcribed to a handwritten form as well, and then invoices are sent. By implementing this software, the public and contractors would be able to apply online through our website. And then the permit would be issued via email after payment has been made and the application has been approved. This would eliminate the paper process, and it would also save time for our staff to be able to complete other duties. This software would be utilized for all of our permits, not limited to building, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, encroachment, etc. With the code enforcement, this would be able to take place in the field. So we would be able to do customizable forms and notices that can be printed from a Bluetooth printer in the inspection vehicle. And it would also allow for any active code violations to be flagged and brought to the attention, which would allow for cross-department awareness of any active violations. Also, our reconciliation of permits is currently done manually. So with this software, it would be automated, and it would be an automatic in-time data process and reporting process. This would also allow for the city to have cross-department collaboration in the plan review process for private development. And this would require all city requirements be met and payment be made before the project received the permit. This would, the vendor would provide 6 months of training to get staff trained up on the software and also for the implementation to take place. And we would receive technical support as needed throughout the agreement. The agreement is for a 6-year term. This software was not budgeted for, so it would require a budget amendment. The first year subscription and implementation cost is $22,625.49. This is spread out over a 6-month period. So the start date would be December 1st of 2022, and at signing, we would pay $1,135.57. The additional $21,489.92 again would be invoiced over the 6-month period, with 20% being invoiced after the go live date. Year 2 subscription would be $14,035.59, with an increase of 3% through the 6 years, ending this agreement with the option to renew in July of 2028. And the final year expense would be $15,797.18. These costs would be absorbed through the planning and zoning and inspection departments budget. And so staff's recommendation is for city council to approve and authorize city manager to make necessary budget amendment in the amount not to exceed $22,625.49 to cover the costs associated with the permitting software and to adopt a resolution approving city manager to accept and sign the agreement with Brightly Software.
So in other words, we're stepping into the 22nd century.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's like we're really stepping forward anyway. The last two things are probably definitely necessary.
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item M is a resolution of the council approving and authorising the mayor to sign a contract for legal services with Lynch Dallas PC and authorising the city manager to make necessary budget amendments to pay for services rendered.
This item is a follow-up to the recommendation I made in my memo at the last meeting regarding the proposed plans for the Wilson Borough Park. We initially were anticipating that the Wilson Brewer Park would, they had a meeting the other week and would come back with their, I guess, their proposal or their plan for the park. They're still working through some of the fact-finding information. They're consolidating and hopefully into a single document and plan to meet again, if I understand correctly, and then also follow up with the Park and Rec Commission. Part of that, as noted in my memo, where the chairman of the Wilson Brewer Park Commission is currently partnered to our city attorney in his law office. And so that has led to some questions that make it difficult to navigate what information is coming from Zach directly or what's coming from Gary. And so to alleviate some of the questions and concerns, I reached out to Lynch Dallas's law firm and requested if they might be available to represent the city specific to matters pertaining to the Wilson Brewer Park. This is just to approve the contract. And hopefully at the next meeting, the council will revisit the issue, at that point decide which way you want to go. But at least if you approve the contract, that will be in place to be able to move forward and address any questions of a legal nature to navigate what plans and proposals come from either the Wilson Brewer Park, the Park and Recreation Commission, as well as your discussions if they move forward with the county.
Sounds good. Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Item N is discussion and direction for staff for city council request for information regarding automated traffic enforcement systems, speed and red light cameras.
So roughly about a few months ago now, several of you had inquired or requested information regarding automatic traffic enforcement systems or speed cameras or red light cameras. Coming back with just information of research as well as some information we've had and talking with one of the vendors and other communities as to that have implemented this and what it takes. Right off the bat, probably not something we would look at. Red light cameras. There's 4 intersections that have traffic controlled intersections with lights on them. Red light running hasn't been a significant issue. I think in the past year might have been only one citation or instance where that was issued. Speed, on the other hand, is a different scenario. And your packet included a summary of the past 2 years of traffic citations that the police department has issued for excessive speed within the Webster city limits. It also provided a breakdown of locations where those have occurred. As we looked into these systems and we identified some communities that have already adopted these systems. There was a list included in a council packet, and those range in various sizes. Some much larger, like Des Moines, others more comparable in size and service areas such as Independence and Owine. So they've adopted these systems in the same manner we would probably look to do, and that is I would recommend if you want to do, we would do a third-party contractor to help manage and oversee that, as opposed to having our own equipment and manage that. It's not a simple process. There are several things we would have to navigate, but in large part, once we select the vendor, they are responsible for coordinating a lot of the aspects associated with the speed camera systems. Some of those include traffic studies for the specific areas where they would be incorporated or being put in place. Those traffic studies would look at the average speed and the vehicle counts. They would also assess the infrastructure in the area available to set up their equipment. Some other communities, they varied. Some have gone out through an RFP process, requesting proposals from vendors with specific criteria built into the RFP. Others have gone out through direct sole source contracting, selecting a vendor based off of their reputation or their ability to perform the services they need. Those contracts vary between 5 to 7 years, seems to be the average. It will require an adoption within our ordinance to permit these systems and this method of issuing traffic citations. But in general, the vendor will be responsible for all the equipment as well as the service and maintaining that said equipment. They will process the citations and send out the mailers and set up a web page connected to our website, our city website, where payments could be made. The one thing that's came to light as we navigated and researching this was that the citations will require, before they're issued by the third-party vendor, they will require an officer to review the information, review the actual image, the information related to that incident, things such as the speed, the posted speed limits, identifying the vehicle, before that officer can okay that, and then that citation be processed. So it will require manpower on our end to review and process these citations. In terms of location, I really will be somewhat open and subject to the city's discretion. And obviously the vendor would look at each site to identify its potential value to mitigate the speed concerns and safety concerns. This is the big, in all the communities, the big driver for this has been a safety concern and identifying and providing more resources to augment the police department to address speed as a concern in the community. And so the equipment ranges from both fixed cameras. They also have mobile units. Some may be familiar with them, what they've seen mobile units in the city of Fort Dodge. They also have handheld units that do the same function. But there's different mechanisms and methods that we can look to do with this. Approximate timeline from the time council okays and approves a contract with a vendor will be about 180 days. There's some couple variables in that. We'd have to, I mentioned, update the ordinance, review our fees imposed. Right now, our fee ordinance related to speed citation matches that of the state. We also have to, if any of the systems were to be placed on state highways, the state DOT has a permit process we'd have to navigate, and the vendor would help with all that. In the event that there is a citation that's issued and someone disputes it, the ordinance would spell out the appeal process or the method to be able to dispute that, and the vendor would work with the city to provide the necessary documentation and resources to defend itself in the case of someone appealing or contesting it. These citations are not recorded or reported to the DMV. They are a municipal infraction, essentially. And so the enforcement and prosecution of that is done in a similar manner of a municipal infraction versus a fine by the state code that then gets reflected in your driving record. So I included in there, part of what they look at was the state of Iowa's DOT maintains a crash analysis of the communities throughout Iowa. Included in there was the analysis report for Webster City itself. I went back 5 years, starting in 2017. It'll reflect the number of crashes or incidences that were reported within Webster City. The DOT breaks that down to different categories such as fatal or serious injury, minor injury, or unknown, or just property damage. The vast majority of them are property damage, but the total number of crashes reported on their system is 575. You compare that with the traffic citation numbers, which I think I included in there. Over the past 2 years alone, from October 31st, November 1st of 2020 through October 31st, 2022, 538 citations issued for speed within that 24-month period. That doesn't include any warnings that the officers would have issued. And so you kind of compare the crash analysis as well as the number of citations and realize just how big of an issue speeding is within the community. Location wise, in terms of traffic accidents, each dot on this map represents a traffic accident that's been reported within that 5-year period. In the packet included a much more detailed or larger map that emphasizes in Webster City. These are again the accidents reported, and they vary throughout the community, but you do see some patterns. Highway 20 being one of them, 2nd Street, some of our major thoroughfares, Superior, Broadway, Prospect. Interestingly enough, 1st Street, Division, and Bank Street, a lot of vehicle traffic as well as accidents, particularly when you look at it, some of the major thoroughfare intersections that have stop signs. So whether or not some of those accidents are attributed to people failing to yield is one of the potential factors in that. So So this is some of the information that would go into or would help us as well as the vendor determine locations to go for. And you certainly have the right to choose how many you'd like to implement. I know that when I spoke with the director of the League of Cities about some earlier in the year about what other cities have done for traffic or speed camera enforcement, he indicated that Cedar Rapids, they put one on the interstate or put several on the interstate, and the main factor was just to alleviate and help reduce their officers having to patrol and be on the interstate, given the hazards and dangers of being on the highway. And so that was one of the driving factors as to why they put them out there. Was there a requirement to respond or to enforce traffic enforcement on that area due to the accidents that were prone? Certainly, when we look at the map, there's probably not one location that probably isn't worth considering, but certainly the number is certainly up to us to decide how many we'd like to put. So with that, Shiloh and I can answer any specific questions you may have related to traffic citations and all the systems and information we've found so far.
So now you're just looking for direction, right? Like if we want to pursue this.
So yeah, there was three specific questions that we're trying to pinpoint. One is, do you still want to pursue this? Would you like us to look at an RFP process or just go sole source and bring back recommendations to the council for a particular vendor? Or if you wish to interview or hear proposals from both and specific locations you may have in mind.
One positive for the city above safety is this also is a revenue generator, right? I mean, there's going to be revenue generated from these tickets. So, I'm curious about alternative revenue sources. Maybe just expanded revenue sources through citations or municipal infraction fines. However, I'm kind of anti-speed camera, so I don't really know how comfortable I am voting for something like this in our community, even though it does have safety and alternative tax dollar benefits. I wouldn't want to be closed-minded to talk about what that line is. So at this point, I would be open to hear from vendors or hear more about what that looks like financially for us based on our traffic, based off of what we could expect from something like this. But personally, I'm just kind of against the whole idea of the big brother type traffic citation.
We could do just Interstate 20 if we wanted, right? We wouldn't have to do like the red light, like you said, like in town stuff.
We put them on the street on the corner of your block.
Oh, my block?
Well, maybe mine.
Daniel, would we incur any costs to proceed forward with evaluating? I would prefer that it be very safety focused and not revenue generating. I mean, obviously it does, but if we can't point back that it's going to increase the safety, I'd have a hard time saying that I would support moving forward. And looking at that map, I mean, it's hard to say based on the accidents being spread so far throughout the city, where that would be, I guess, without a company that does that and can provide analysis for us. But then my question is there cost up front to have them provide proposals? Do they charge anything for evaluation fees?
So generally they'll do the traffic assessment after the agreement with the specific vendor is approved. And typically it could be an engineering firm or it could be specific firms that they work with that does that. So they'll line that up. With the one vendor we spoke to, they were going to check on availability going into the winter months. If it's something the council wanted to proceed and move forward with in the next few council meetings to approve some sort of a contract. We can ask if it's something they can do beforehand, but I don't know what that cost would be and where that cost would be absorbed from.
The revenue from this, where will it go? Like, is it gonna be allotted to a certain place, or is it gonna be in the general fund, or?
You can designate it if you want a specific allocation or to go to specific items. No different than citations that the PD issues right now, it goes into the general fund. So if you, with Matt's comment of being safety minded, if that was one of the priorities, or if you wanted to set priorities of where it could go towards, you can certainly do that, or you can prioritize it to other things. So, you know, we're just wrapping up the Safe Routes to School plan, and that's going to have some recommendations for improvements, pedestrian and vehicle safety wise, and in and around schools. There'll be some costs associated with that if the council wanted to move forward. So, for instance, you could say the revenue, if it what's generated from speed cameras can go towards that. And certainly throughout the budget process, the council can define those priorities of where you want that to go, or you can leave it open-ended and just say the general fund.
I mean, I think it makes sense to have it go somewhere specifically. It makes it seem less sort of skeezy that you put them up, you know, but they're
Mhm. Not to
benefiting
just bring it in.
the
just to
police
bring it in,
department or
yeah.
the fire department or whatever it would be.
Wastewater treatment.
Yeah, and obviously, I think the mindset is, well, you would hope that once you put these cameras up, it changes you want it to change the behavior of drivers. And so in a perfect world, the intent is you put these up and the number of citations goes down. It doesn't always quite work that way. Some have a heavier foot than others. But that's the end goal for that. But yeah, you can clearly see on the map of where the accidents have been. And when you look at the list of citations that are issued, where they're issued, and it mirrors the map, they're just all over the community.
Yeah, I'll kind of repeat some, comments Matt made. I mean, again, if it's going to show a huge impact for safety, I would humor it. The revenue thing is an added bonus, and obviously I'd be interested in what that would even look like, but just to make an educated decision. So if you're looking for a consensus to look more into it, I mean, I would cautiously say, okay, but I tell you right now, I just don't think Webster City is in need of, some type of autonomous type monitoring of speed. And I don't know if, again, looking at that map, I don't see how that's really going to make any current thoroughway safer per se. I mean, it's a great idea. And again, I've seen them in, I've been hit by the one in Cedar Rapids several times, and I've seen the Fort Dodge one, and I don't think our roads are any less or more safe than either of those communities. So again, that's why I think a bigger driver from those communities is more of a revenue driver, I would assume. If it's safety, fine. And if they can show that their safety increased or their accidents decreased by X amount over so many years, I would be entertained to learn that information. So I'm not saying no to the information. I'm just saying I personally would be against any type of non-police moving violations issued in Webster City.
I personally would be for it. We need to look at alternative revenue streams.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, it does make you slow down when you're driving around. I mean, it's, I speed everywhere, and I know to slow down when there are others happening. That's what it is. I mean, it does make you pay attention. It's when you see those signs and it says 55, you better start slowing down. Because they will send you they'll send you the picture. Yeah. So I think they work. There's no doubt about that. But I guess from the revenue side of it, if it's I would assume that most of the revenue you would get would be from not people from Webster City, would be from people elsewhere, because most of the people here should know where they are and act accordingly. But I guess it's up to them.
Especially on 20.
Anyway, I guess the idea is that we're for moving forward with it. So would that be correct?
Consensus.
I'm cautiously okay moving forward with more information. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to see more information and know there aren't any upfront costs for doing the evaluation to then decide later we don't want to move forward. So I'd like to know what that's going to entail. Do you have to sign the agreement with the company before they're going to do any analysis, or if they're gonna provide some upfront.
And it says the agreement would address if legislation changes the ability to have these. Like if in a year they say these are illegal.
Yeah, over the last several years, there's been legislation introduced to. They started off with trying to ban cities' ability to use these types of systems to now to limit or curtail their use in some way. The matter reached the state Supreme Court several years ago with a couple cities that had systems on state highways, and so the state ruled that municipalities can have these systems on the state highways, but there's always constantly legislation being introduced to limit their ability. And so, yeah, if with the one contract that I think it might have been Owine and Independence have with their vendor, it spells out that, yeah, if legislation changes that does away with the ability to do this, the vendor collects their equipment and they cease operations in that community. Yeah, but I think that some of the notions and concepts in the legislation to curtail that are driven by the impression that it is just a revenue generator for cities and not a safety priority. If I understand correctly, there is consensus to continue to explore this. We'd like to see more information on specific locations and what that would look like in terms of cost and revenue that might support that. So.
Yeah. Zach, you have an update?
Just real quick, on abandoned properties, we went after 5 of them, as you guys are aware. One of them is sold in the process to another party who is in the process of rehabbing it. 2 you guys approved tonight to accept acquisition of. 1 more went to court, and the court gave them until the 15th of December to get the property tore down or rehabbed. So come December 15th, if it's not done, we'll be also taking that one. And then 1 more is set for a hearing next week, a week from today on Park Street. And that one will likely end up being owned by the city as well. Nuisance properties, we continue to work, obviously. Myself and Officer Basinger continue to put the pedal down on nuisance properties in town and getting those addressed. And then last but not least, we're working on easements for the wastewater treatment plant. We met last week, Daniel, myself, and Dee Dee met over the phone with an attorney for the largest landowner that it's running through. And we're trying to get those details finalized, hopefully to get agreement executed on that one, because that would be a major win for the city on that. So any questions, as always, I'm here to answer.
Yeah. Anyone have anything else? Yes, call for motion to adjourn.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Hi.
We're adjourned. Thanks everybody for coming.